Hey guys, welcome to New Society, and I'm your host, Carlo Jean-Michel. With me is our special co-host, Jordan Peterson. And we're back.
Yes,
You guys,
I wasn't awkward.
What?
I wasn't awkward. Yes!
That was
nailed it!
That's the best high five we've had all day.
Let's go.
Guys, this is the last episode. Welcome to Ageism, today's societal deformity. It's really cool. I am a very introspective person, and I love to go back to the beginning. I recently did a post that said something to the effect of, well, I think I mentioned it in the post. We all have a tendency to compare. And I feel like if you're going to compare, the best person to compare yourself to is yourself at the beginning of whatever journey you started. If you're on a weight loss journey, if you're on a spiritual awakening journey, if you're on a, hold no guilt, hold no shame journey, always compare yourself to where you started, because even though you're looking for this grandiose, over the top, end game where you're a completely different human and you've transformed into exactly who it is that you want to be, that's, for lack of a better term, not unrealistic, but when you're looking to see how far you've come, it's unrealistic. More times than not, when you start at the beginning, you realize, you know what? I am further along. There are a lot of these things that I used to do at the beginning that I don't do anymore. And even though you are not where you want to be, you're definitely no longer where you started. And so, with that said, it's the last episode. A lot went into this. A very special thank you to you, sir, for everything that you've done. Setting everything up.
I did everything. That's what he's saying.
Wow. For the setup, for the editing, for being
production, the writing, the speaking, the guest hosting, the hosting. The house, the food.
I stand corrected. You did all this, and
you're welcome.
You just happened to have me along for the ride. That means so much to me, bro.
He's not going to be in season 2.
I mean, after this, it's going to be a wrap.
Oh no.
With all of that said, one of the best pieces of advice, and I feel like you actually tried relaying this to me very early on, was the idea of not watching. Just the goal is to put out content and to get it out there. And I have a tendency to analyze, like I just said a few minutes ago. And when you're so critical that nothing makes the cut, clearly you're going about it all wrong. So the advice that I got, which I was told that they weren't going to suggest this because they personally thought it was going to be too hard for them, but they said, don't watch it. Just film it, don't watch it. And that was even easier for me because you're the one who's doing the editing, and that meant a lot. It made a huge difference, obviously. And now we're putting out shit. And
videos.
It's awesome.
It is.
Alright, so with that said...
Did you know ageism is spelled both ways? So ageism and Agism?
No.
That's interesting. It says over here.
That is interesting. Alright, so today's episode is ageism, and we are discussing another one of my great topics. Another thing that I'm hoping that I did a really good job kind of weaving into every episode was the concept of societal deformities. I feel like that's what this podcast was kind of built around. I feel like up until now we've been living in a deformed society. A lot of things have been very counterintuitive, and again, the definition of a societal deformity is societal deformities, I'll say the plural, are deeply rooted constructs embedded in our society that negate our success and set us up for failure. So every episode, the ancestral karma, the concept of sins of the father and sins of the mother become the sins of the son and the sins of the daughter. And the deformity is that that's just how it's going to be. And I'd like to think the episode relayed that it's a personal choice. It's up to you. You are the captain of your own ship. You write your story. You decide how it goes. And if you find comfort in, walking your parents' footsteps, so be it. If not, you have that power. Same thing with men and women and how they were both treated in our society up until recently, and how there's this incredible shift that's taking place. And I'm excited to see a world where it's not this is what it means to be a man, it's not this is what it means to be a woman, it's this is what it means to be insert name of person here. This is what it means to be Carlo, this is what it means to be Jordan, this is what it means to be Jamie, this is what it means to be Sarah. And I love that, and I see it happening. Even over this past weekend, with Ubers, the conversations that I had with the Uber drivers just confirms everything that was happening pre-COVID, where that's when I noticed the shift, where a lot of different people that are completely disconnected to each other as far as they don't know one another are all saying the exact same thing, which is that I'm empowered. It's my life. It's my destiny. So again, every episode has been discussing a societal deformity, how it's been up until now, as well as the shift and where I'm optimistic about where it's going. So with that said, let's get into ageism. We start off with a beautiful perspective from the Gary Vaynerchuk. I always feel awful like I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Also known as GaryVee. Gary Gay and then VEE on Instagram. And he basically says, stop forcing yourself to grow up faster than you're ready. And I feel like up until now in our society, I remember growing up, I cannot tell you how many times I heard different people say, well, I'm 21, not much else to be excited about now. Every birthday is just one more year closer to death. And I just remember hearing it and like having the worst time digesting that way of thinking. I was just like, are you kidding me? It never made any sense to me, and I was always so aggressively against that. I was like, you're out of your mind. You're 21, and from this point on, let's say you're 80, every single year you're not going to celebrate, you're not going to get excited. Listen, anyone who knows me is well aware about how I feel about birthdays. I used to celebrate mine for a month at a time. Now, 2 weeks is a lot. But the point is that it's the day of your birth. It's the day of you coming into the world. Like, you changed your family's life. Like, for those fortunate enough to have a family, like for those that were in the foster system or in more unorthodox situations, I guarantee you affected a lot more positive change than you realize. It's just, I have this theory, or actually I heard this theory that basically said, do you have any idea how many like outrageous series of events had to take place for those of us that believe in the Big Bang Theory, from the Big Bang or whatever interpretation of it that you have to now in order for you to exist in the world? It hurts me that there are so many people today who still think that life is meaningless, that there isn't a point to it, that it sucks and then you die, and that all you're here to do is work and pay taxes. It's awful. And I don't know. I'm a firm believer that it is a miracle to be here. And obviously I'm very empowered in the idea of the individual being empowered to steer their own destiny throughout life. And so with GaryVee saying, stop forcing yourself to grow up faster than you're ready, I feel like back in the day, for example, getting married at a very young age was the norm because 65 was like near death at one point. So when you're 18, 19 years old, you want to get a head start on the rest of your life. You want to raise that family, you want to find a job, you want to work really hard, make a living so that you can retire and enjoy it at the end. Which even that made no sense to me, because you're spending the quote-unquote strongest, most formidable years of your life working. And I get it. I completely understand, that was the way of life. That's how it went. That's how it worked. But then when you're retired and you're physically exhausted, then you get to enjoy it. I feel like at that point, getting up in the morning and just being alive and just, I mean, it sounds very humble and beautiful, you know, spending time with your family is great, but I believe it was Alan Watts who basically said that that's the complete opposite of how it's supposed to be. He explains that as far as going to work and getting a job to pay bills and pay taxes makes absolutely no sense, especially if you're not enjoying what it is that you do. And it's also GaryVee who made the comment of, I think he was having an interview with someone, and he asked the interviewer, he's like, how old are you? And the interviewer was like 43 or 42. And GaryVee's like, yeah, I'm 43. He's like, do you remember like being 16, 17, 18 years old and remembering like 40 was over the hill? Like you were so old at that point. Like your life was half over, you were half dead. And he's like, I feel like I'm just living. I feel like I'm just getting started. I finally figured shit out. Like I have my ducks in a row. I know where my focus is and I'm ready to hit the ground running. I mean, back in 2009, GaryVee was just a guy who was, you know, frantically going on about how the internet was a game changer and how, you know, invest in things, invest in Twitter, invest in Snapchat, invest in Instagram. And now, in 2021, he's worth $143 million. So, I mean, clearly he knows what he's talking about. And so going from how things have been to how I see things going, I'm excited to live in a world where 21 is okay, I'm officially legal. Which even then, that's a discussion that I want to talk about. But to finish this specific thought, I'm excited to live in a world where the general consensus is that once you hit 40, ideally, you found your stride. And again, I just had a great conversation on Instagram today about how someone else said the words, and it blew my mind. They said, we don't live in a one-size-fits-all society, and I feel like I've said that so many times throughout this journey, and I loved it, and we went back and forth about it, and it was incredible because, with that said, for some people, they'll get there at 30. For some people, they'll get there at 50, but with the longevity that we have going on in the world, like how many people are living to be over 100? In my own personal family, my grandfather died at 97. My grandmother's, I think, 96, and she's still alive and kicking. My great-grandmother was 105, I believe I heard, and my great-great-grandfather was 114.
Jesus.
I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon, which is probably why I'm really excited. So for me, 40 is, for me personally, I'm 41, and I am so excited for everything that happens next. I'm so excited now. I'm so excited that this is what I get to be doing, and you know, with life coaching and just supporting people while they figure their stuff out. That's all I do. As a life coach, as a therapist, as a counselor, you simply provide tools. You simply give encouragement, and if nothing else, permission for people to really tap into who it is that they authentically are. That's all you're doing. And I feel like 40 is such a strong age to really have your shit together. And if we're living to be 100 plus, you're not even, you still have minimum, 60 more years left? Even if you're 80, come on, that's still half your life. How do you want to live it? And we've seen 60-year-olds, we've seen 70-year-olds with abs, with little body fat. And you don't have to be decrepit. You don't have to be arthritis stricken. You don't have to be keeled over with some kind of physical ailment that debilitates you from living a really good quality of life. I plan on having children someday. I have absolutely no idea when it is because I have so much more work to do. And my point is that I feel like this is already a shift. You know, I remember when I heard that 30 was the new 20. And then I've heard 40 was the new 30. And it makes sense. And it's not just of course you say that as you get older. No, that's the shift. That's what's happening. It's what's taking place. Like, everyone's saying this. Again, Uber conversations, bartending conversations. We all know that the bartender's the poor man's therapist. And there's that. So getting back to being 21, let's see. So, in my notes I wrote down that in the US, drinking age is 16. Legal age is 18.
Drinking age is 16?
Excuse me. Driving age is 16. Legal age is 18, thank you. Drinking age is 21. And the argument you always hear, especially in contrast to Europe, is according to our government, you're mature enough to take your life and everyone else's in your own hands behind the wheel of a car at the ripe age of 16. You're mature enough to make your own sexual choices and assist influencing the country vote at the age of 17 and then 18. Interesting. But you're not mature enough to handle the responsibility of alcohol until you're 21. I feel like that just speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Anything?
It's 16 euros to drink. At least in Paris.
Wait, 16? I thought it was 18.
In Paris it was 16.
Okay.
I don't know about in London area.
I believe it's 18. In Europe, as long as you're 18, you can do it. And in regards to that, it's just, I'd like to think that we covered this in the education episode. Education starts before the classroom. And I've always loved the parents in the households where, you know what, you want to have people over, you want to get wasted, that's absolutely fine. We'll be in our bedrooms, don't embarrass us. Don't put us in a position where we have to call the police or talk to someone's parents. Because they simply put, you're going to do this. I know you're going to do this. I did this. I personally didn't do it. But, you know, parents are like, I did this. I'd much rather you do it here. We trust you. Have a good time. Don't invite vagrants into our home, etc. And it makes sense. And I get that. And directly underneath everything that I read, it says overprotective parents make the best little liars. And what do you think about that?
No comment.
I heard the sigh.
I don't disagree.
I mean, I don't disagree either.
I don't like expose myself, you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't think you'd be alone with that thought. I feel like there are a lot of people, if you haven't heard that term, that phrase, I feel like there are a lot of people who all kind of just did exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like for me, I always say that I was basically like a preacher's son. My mom wasn't a preacher, but to this day, she's a leader in her church, and so as her child, you know, there were certain expectations of us, and we had expectations just like the pastor's children did and whatnot, to uphold ourselves to a certain standard. And it was exhausting, you know, being 12, being 13 years old and being expected to get over the fact that you didn't want to be there in the first place, to get over, you know, whatnot. And church was interesting for me because I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how I felt after. I enjoyed the peace. I enjoyed how I felt like I connected with something much greater than myself that was very encouraging, and it was very cathartic for me because, you know, I grew up hearing, just ask for forgiveness. Just, you know, follow the 10 Commandments. It was pretty simple. Ironically, as I got older, I felt like it got way more complicated, like right around the age of 16. And that's where my relationship with the church personally like shifted. However, I still have the utmost faith in religion and what it does for people. I think that's incredible. But with that said, yeah, overprotective parents overprotective parents make the best little liars. Okay, so I say more, which is that, and this is where it begins. You spend so much time anticipating being able to drink legally and experience bars without the stress of your fake ID passing, but then beyond that, and maybe getting married and having kids. Maybe there isn't much else to look forward to, and that's a gross overgeneralization. I was elaborating on the whole, life sucks after the age of 21 thing. Going along with how I feel about age, and how I feel like in our society like a certain age meant a certain thing. Another GaryVee rant is how he goes on to say, this whole rhetoric of by the age of 18, by the age of 21, by the age of 30, by the age of 40, like you're supposed to have these like milestone things figured out in your life, and of course he throws it out. He's like, that's total bullshit. That's not how it works. It's not how it worked for me. I remember when I was 26, I was dating a 19-year-old, and I feel like for a lot of people that was like outrageous and over the top. For me, I have the mentality of a 19-year-old. Just because like legally I was 26 doesn't mean I had a clue about how anything worked. I feel like another thing that just blows my mind is how quickly we work to be older. And I just explained why. It's not until 16 that you can drive. It's not until 18 that you can buy cigarettes and you can vote. It's not until 21 in the US that you can drink. So of course you're gonna work really hard to be older. Also because while you're growing up, all you hear from adults is that you're a child. You'll understand when you're older. Your opinion doesn't really matter right now. I'd like to think that that there's been a huge shift in that as well. But up until the shift, I feel like, can you blame anyone for wanting to be older? Can you blame anyone for wanting to be taken more seriously and to have their opinion matter? Of course they're going to try to get older. Of course they're going to want to just have a say in their life and what goes on in their life. Ironically, as you hit a certain age, it shifts, and the goal is to start looking younger, because youth is idolized, and that's the goal. You want to try to stay young for as long as possible, and I feel like even that's a huge shift. Jennifer Aniston, Will Smith, Angela Bassett, the entire cast of The Vampire Diaries. Everyone looks so like the entire cast of Vampire Diaries today in 2021, everyone looks so young still. Like you have Candace King, you have Paul Wesley, who might have been the oldest cast member of the entire series, and he looks phenomenal now, more so than he did then. And it's just, time has shifted, like life has shifted. J-Lo has this beautiful, she has a bunch of gorgeous clips on social media, but one of them is how she talks about happiness and how happiness is your responsibility and how sometimes you have to force yourself to be happy. And she has these affirmations that she speaks out every single day. She's like, I am whole and fulfilled on my own. The universe loves me. God loves me. I love God. I love the universe. I love you, Jennifer. She's like, I am ageless and timeless at any age. I'm enough. And it makes so much sense because J-Lo doesn't look a day older than 27 to me in 2021. Like, it blows my mind. You have thoughts?
No.
And Jennifer Aniston, just so many people, like, age isn't now what it was 25 years ago, even 10 years ago. And again, I feel like, I may have mentioned this in other episodes, I feel like the shift has already taken place. It's just that people are still figuring that out. And I feel like what's going on in the world is that we're experiencing growing pains. I feel like all the dust is up in the air and it's still settling. And while it's settling, people are figuring it out. And I think full throttle, my goal in the world is to see, I'd love to see a society where before 40 you're figuring it out. You're the youth of the world. It doesn't matter that you're 36, it doesn't matter that you're 26. Obviously, you have your teenagers still, and you have your young adults. And I feel like I'd love to see a world where from 18 to what? 38? You're a young adult. You're figuring your life out. It's checks and balances. I keep referencing him. I guess he's the reference for this episode. GaryVee says Oprah wasn't Oprah until after 40. GaryVee wasn't GaryVee until after 40. I remember in my I believe it was my physiological psychology course in college, the head of the psychology department at Northeastern, I think he said something similar where before he became who he was around the time of teaching the class and heading the department, like 5 years before that, he was like selling pizza. You know what I mean? Or this was a while ago, so I don't really remember the details, but basically same thing. Like 40 is when you figure it out, and again, everyone's living way longer, everyone's looking younger for way longer. And I'm just excited to kind of let that old world thinking die out. And when you see someone who is what I call an adult, so let's say from 40 to 60, I feel like that's you living your life, people aren't retiring until 70 now. So 40 to 60, you have, and again, this is person specific, they're outliers. This doesn't apply to everyone. You could be 30, you could be 50, whatever it is. But I feel like, generally speaking, I'd like to see 40 to 60 is kind of like the adults of society, as far as just you're in the driver's seat affecting change, in government, in the private sector, in medicine, whatnot. Those are the people who are actively affecting change. And then from 60 on, I feel like 60 is even young. I'd like to say from 75 on, you have who I'd like to think maybe even 80. So clearly I need to readjust this age timeline, but maybe from 80 on, you have who I like to think of as the elders. You've lived. You have this wisdom, you have this experience, you were in the driver's seat for decades, and you have knowledge, and that's respected. So much so that it's not you're senile and you're hard of hearing and whatnot. It's wow, you're still alive, you're still kicking, you still look great. You don't look a day older than 60, even though you're 80 plus, and you're in a position where you can proudly share your knowledge with the next generation. And you're just respected as such. I feel like up until recently, there was this awful disrespect for the elderly, because it's just this generalized understanding or belief that they're not able to properly take care of themselves. Their hearing goes, they're very dependent because of physical aches and pains. Some of them are in wheelchairs or have walkers or whatnot, and I'd like to see that changing. I really, really would. That's kind of it. That's kind of what I have. I mean, there's obviously a lot more, but
I'd just like to say that
Please.
Kids nowadays know way too much with the internet. Kids nowadays know more than the adults. I've even heard this on multiple podcasts. The kids are changing, the adults are changing, and I just wanted to put that out there.
I love that you did, because that's another really great avenue to branch off into. I was watching a show on Netflix called Lock and Key, and it's the Locke family, and they live in one of those houses with names, and the house is called Key House. And what the general public doesn't realize is that it's not just a play on words, it's literal. And it's the Locke family that are kind of the guardians of Key House, because Key House is one big portal. And each door opens up a different realm, if you will. And the dad recently passed away, who passed on the name Locke. And so it was the mom and the 3 kids who, inherited the house, and they were the new gatekeepers. But dad never really explained it to them, because he was, this was a while ago, if I'm not mistaken, he was trying to kind of sever that connection. So they move into the house, and I think the eldest is like 17, the middle child's like 15, and is it Cody? No, Bodhi. I remember he had a really cool, simple but unique name. Bodhi, I think, is like 9. And I remember watching the series and thinking, he's the smartest person in the house. Because, and I'm pretty sure I said this in the Ageism episode, or in the education episode, children, just exactly what you said, children are so much smarter than adults. And that's before the internet. Simply because children are not indoctrinated into the way the world works. And I used Game of Thrones as a reference with Maester Tale, who, I don't know why that accent was so awful, but he goes to be a maester, and they discover a case of Greylock, and he's convinced that he can cure it. But the Grand Maester is like, well, how many cases of Greylock have you cured? And very shamefully, he bows his head and he says no, and he's like, that's exactly what I thought. It can't be done. And I feel like that's how your average adult is. Well, that won't work because of this, and that won't work because of this. Well, you have to understand, you have to do this first, and then, whatnot. And whereas kids are just like, problem, logical solution. Let's figure out how to get from here to here. The end. Children are water.
They have more imagination.
Way more imagination. That isn't bogged down by rules and regulations.
And past failures, pretty much.
Come on, guys. Get on board. The kids already are. And now that we have the internet, come on, game changer. Game changer. Like, there's so many things that I don't know how to do on my cell phone that, like, my 15-year-old niece, like, can figure out, like in a second. And it blows my mind. Well, probably not anymore. I'd like to think, but probably. But the point is that, yeah, GaryVee was right. The internet is a game changer. I absolutely, I'll be the first to say that technology goes a little bit too far sometimes, and there's this really uncomfortable concern that I don't know how to put this into words. It's as if we're trying to be made really lazy. And it drives me crazy. And the need for all of us to be completely connected to our phones at all times is exhausting and extremely unhealthy. With that said, I love that I can just open up my phone and Google anything, research anything. And that part's awesome. And honestly, that's why I'm always in my phone. And as much as I love social media for networking and for building my brand and getting the word out, I don't like it because it is a black hole and it sucks you in, and before you know it, it's been 45 minutes and you haven't done what you went on there to do in the first place, which was message someone or, whatever. And the beauty of it is that technology is pretty awesome. How about this? I'm curious what your thoughts are on how, I feel like science for years has been shoving down our throats that this is the most technologically advanced that we've ever been in humanity's existence. And exactly, like, there are so many sources that are like, no, don't let them fool you. Our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, the Mayans, for example, were far more intelligent than we were. And or advanced than we were. And I feel like a lot of people are going to roll their eyes and like, bro, the Mayans predicted that the end of the world like 9 times already, because I was that person too. And that's exactly what I said. I remember when 2012 came and went, someone was like, oh yeah, we were supposed to da-da-da-da in 2012. And I'm like, again? Another one? But dude, if there's anything that I've learned, it's that perspective is everything. And just because something may seem like a farce, it's all about context, and it's all about perception, and it's all about perspective. So keep that in mind. And I feel like a lot of people now and earlier, when I reference, all these celebrities who, are worth millions plus, I feel like a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, it's easy for J-Lo to say, she has these affirmations and that's why she looks like a goddess. Because she's worth millions and because, she has this army of makeup artists and a personal trainer and whatnot, and I think that's total crap. I think that's your average person creating distance and simply nullifying your ability to take control of your life, because I know a lot of people who aren't worth millions, who look incredible at the age of 40, who look incredible at the age of 50. I feel like, again, up until now, the rhetoric has been, oh, it's easy for someone who's successful and who's succeeded to say what it takes to be successful and succeed because they have millions. And it's like, are you listening to yourself? You have these people who came from nothing and who are taking time out of their clearly busy lives to instill wisdom as a way of giving back. So many people in my personal life are amazed at how open and just expressive I am with the good fortune that I've had in my life. And it's because when I was starting out and figuring things out and in college, like a freshman, sophomore, whatever, I had people who would go above and beyond to help me out the way that I help people out now. And when I said, I don't know how to thank you at the age of 20, they said, pay it forward. So you know what I'm doing? I'm paying it forward. And that's all these people are doing when they're trying to share with you their knowledge and their wisdom. And you saying, oh, it's easy for you to say, all you're doing is saying, well, that's not going to be me. The end. And you're right. Simply because you said that, that's not going to be you. It's that simple, people. When I say you are the master of your own destiny, you are the captain of your own ship, I mean, granted, these are metaphors, but you know what I mean. It's not that simple. Live your life on your terms. And I believe it was during the LGBTQ plus episode, Jonathan, our special co-host, asked the question, how exactly do you do that? What does it look like? And I basically said it starts with you. Because when you're connecting with you, you're connecting with what makes you happy. You're connecting with your homeostasis. You're connecting with what leaves you not miserable. And once you figure out what that is, or at least start figuring out what that is, just reach out and find like-minded people. If you're into art, find other artists. I'm not saying that it's a blanket thing and every artist is going to be the same. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying you're smart enough to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? And simply find people. I posted something recently that said, let's normalize apologizing when you're wrong instead of being defensive and negative out of embarrassment. And I basically said, if the thought of apologizing when you're wrong leaves you uncomfortable, it's because you have the wrong ideals or are surrounded by the wrong people. And where I'm ultimately going with this is find your people. There's another awesome quote that says, if you look around at your friends and you're not inspired, you have the wrong friends. And I am so unbelievably blessed and fortunate that every single person in my life that I call a friend inspires me. Even people that I don't talk to anymore inspired me, and I'm so grateful that I've had that, because it's been so encouraging and it's been so gratifying and it's been the most incredible support. There's another quote that says, only take advice from people who have succeeded where you're trying to succeed, if that makes sense. And to me, it makes perfect sense. GaryVee, another quote, your friends don't want what you want, so why should their opinion matter to you? If you have friends who don't support your dreams and ambitions, find new friends. But hear me out, because I've been saying this a lot too. Your friends, your parents, your family, your support system, just because they don't agree with you or don't support your ambitions doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom in their words. And to that, I say be smart about it. If you're trying to do music or video game design or something off the beaten path, and your parents ask, or people are holding you accountable to basically kind of answer for what happens if this happens, what happens if this happens, what happens if this happens. First and foremost, you have no one to answer to but yourself. The end. Doesn't matter who it is. That includes partners. Don't know what to tell you. Secondly, it doesn't mean that you can't keep those in mind and say, you know what? It's kind of really smart. What happens if this goes wrong? What happens if this goes wrong? Just be smart about it and have options and have a backup plan and a backup plan to the backup plan. And hell, a backup plan to the backup plan. Why not?
Nice.
Just saying, people. Moral of the story, like everything else in the world, your age is yours to live out. It's not up to anyone else. And again, I'm excited to see a world where age is just a part of who you are. That's it. Doesn't really mean much. I have met 22-year-olds who are way more wise and have much better heads on their shoulders than 32-year-olds, than 42-year-olds. I've had 42-year-olds who are way more wise than 60-year-olds. And vice versa. I'm excited, again, to see a world where your age is similar to the color of your eyes, or your height, or your weight. It's not none of these are defining factors, unless you're looking for ideals in a partner. Even then, it's what you're attracted to. That's our show. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in to every episode that you've enjoyed. You'll get to them when you get to them, the ones that you haven't checked out yet, but we've been happy to be here. My name is Carlo. This is Jordan. We hope to see you guys soon. Season 2. Bye, guys.
Ka-chow.
That's a wrap.
Let's go.
The other one was better.
What was better? The high five?
Yeah, it was fire.
Recording.